From the studios in San Diego, California, this is Frank Fired Up here on the Mixed Up Sports Network on this July 25th, 2016. It is a Monday. We thank you very, very much for joining us today. As the news today, well, the news, as of Friday afternoon, was that the Yankees would not be trading Andrew Miller. That if anyone out of that bullpen trio was going to go, it was going to be Aroldis Chapman. Yesterday afternoon, we heard that that the Yankees were close to a deal with Chapman. Last night, we heard that the deal was going to involve Jorge Soler with the Cubs. This afternoon, about an hour, 2 hours before we got on air here, we found out what the deal actually was, and the Yankees have traded Aroldis Chapman to the Chicago Cubs for outfielder Billy McKinney, right-handed pitcher Adam Warren, so the Yankees get him back, outfielder Rashad Crawford, and shortstop, I had it right, Gleyber Torres from the Chicago Cubs. Now, Torres is the key fixture in this trade. He's the number one prospect in the Cubs farm system. MLB.com has him as the number 24 prospect in all of baseball, while Law has him at number 15. He's a 19-year-old kid out of Venezuela. Been in the minors for 3 years. His first season in the minors, he hit .297 with an on-base percentage of .386 and 33 RBIs. Last year, he hit .287 with 64 RBIs in 126 games. And this year, he is batting .275 with an on-base percentage of .359 and an OPS of .791. Law characterizes Torres as a potential superstar who, quote, looked much older than 18 in terms of plate skills during 2015. So this is the main guy that you are getting out of this deal. The Cubs' number one prospect, and he is a top 25 or top 20, depending upon how you want to look at it, prospect in the major leagues. This is the guy that if you do not feel as though Didi Gregorius is the way to go, or maybe Starlin Castro isn't the way to go for the future, because remember, the Yankees are trying to get young now. This is the guy who is going to replace either one of those two. And the guy Law that I mentioned, who had him as the 15th prospect in Major League Baseball, is ESPN's Keith Law, by the way. So the deal ended up not involving Jorge Soler, which was the rumor last night. And instead you get Gleyber Torres, Billy McKinney, who's an outfielder and a designated hitter, Adam Warren, you get him back, and then Rashad Crawford. So Warren, you can expect he'll be up in the major leagues immediately. As far as I know, McKinney and Crawford are still our minor leaguers. There's still a couple years to go before they come up. But if you are a Yankee fan, you should be. Now you didn't get Kyle Schwarber, and maybe if you would have traded Adam Warren, then maybe you do get Kyle Schwarber. But again, if you're trying to go young, trading Miller and keeping Chapman makes no sense. I understand Chapman's 28, so he's still fairly young. But he had his off the field issues this at the start of the year, which apparently is done and over with. But then you have Miller, who is the best of the trio. The only problem with Miller is, if you can call it a problem, is he doesn't hit 105 on the gun. Which you knew that 105 pitch was a I still got it thing. That, and he's going to be a free agent this year. He's going to be a free agent at the end of the year. So doesn't it make sense to get rid of Aroldis Chapman? Now he goes to the Cubs, which just strengthens that team even more. And now you don't have to worry about signing a closer because you got a closer and a setup man ready to go for next season in Betances and Miller. Now this is potentially, and as I would expect with the way the Yankees have played, since returning from the All-Star break, they lost 2 games against Boston. They lost 1 against Baltimore. They're coming off of a series against the San Francisco Giants, where they faced Madison Bumgarner and Jeff Samardzija. And you won 2 out of 3 there. So you're 6-4 since the All-Star break, having won 2 of the 3 series. If I'm the Yankees, to be perfectly honest, this is the only trade I make. Now we've heard Beltran possibly could go. Eovaldi could go. Pineda could go. We've seen that. Now they're talking that the Yankees have been actively shipping Ivan Nova, who's also set to become a free agent at the end of the year. Which, I mean, are you really going to miss Ivan Nova? I understand he had the one good year. But beyond that, are you really going to miss Ivan Nova? I didn't think so. But if I'm the Yankees, with the way this team is playing right now, you're 7.5 back in the division, because that's only because Baltimore went on a rampage against Cleveland. Something that I certainly wasn't expecting. You sweep Cleveland, and now you are a mere 4.5 games back, a half a game behind Detroit, and you have a golden opportunity right now. With Boston facing Detroit, and now you have Houston, who is a half a game under the cut line. The Yankees have a golden opportunity to gain games in the wild card race. Again, you're only 4.5 back, and since the All-Star break, the Yankees have been actively gaining. I'm sorry, this is the only trade I'm making. Maybe get rid of Nathan Eovaldi, because honestly, the guy, you don't need a guy like Nathan Eovaldi. Again, the guy's giving up, 4 runs a start? The guy doesn't win unless he's getting run support. Last 7 starts, the guy's given up 14 earned runs, struck out 18 and walked 15, and has an ERA of 4.20. Just recently promoted from the bullpen. The guy's given up 59 runs this season. In 18 starts. In 27 starts last year, he gave up 72. He's allowed 19 home runs this year, a career high. Next closest to that was 2014 when he was with the Marlins. He gave up 14 in 33 starts. He's got half the starts and has given up 5 more home runs. The ERA is sitting at 4.80 right now. If you're going to trade another guy, you trade Nathan Eovaldi, that's fine. You had a couple minor leaguers for him, you know what? That's better than nothing. Michael Pineda, maybe he hasn't grown into what you thought he was going to grow into, but still solid middle of the rotation guy. And Carlos Beltran, who is having a throwback season, you know what? I'm not getting rid of him. You're nuts. You are crazy to think I'm getting rid of Carlos Beltran at this point. The team is surging. We're playing a 3-game series against a team we're 4 games behind in a wild card. You know what? I'm keeping him. You want to talk about possibly trading Gardner? You know what? Keep him at this point. Because the Yankees are proving that with this team, they can make a run for it. They can do it. It's not impossible. It's not out of reach. It can be done with this team. They now just have to go out and do it. Again, you're 4.5 games out of a wild card spot behind Toronto, and you're 4 games behind Houston, who you play tonight in Houston. So does it make it a little bit more difficult? Yeah, probably. And you could look at it as, the Yankees have only gained 1 game since the All-Star break. They were 5.5, and then now they're 4.5. That doesn't matter because the teams around them have been falling. The Yankees were the 6th team behind the cut line at the All-Star break. They are now the 3rd team behind the cut line. Tied with Seattle, 2 games over 500, which is something you couldn't say about the team before the All-Star break. And if they can get a little bit of help from Boston tonight, who is in a divisional race of their own, if they can get a little bit of help from Boston tonight, you know what? The Yankees will be 2nd place. If the Yankees and Boston both win, the Yankees are 3.5 games out of the wild card spot in 2nd place behind the cut line. They'll be reeling Houston in, and Houston will be falling back to them. The only issue with Houston is they've won 7 of their last 10. That's the only issue with Houston. They've won 7 of their last 10. They're playing the Yankees at home, which will help for them. The Astros, since the All-Star break, the Astros beat the Seattle Mariners 2-1. lost the series to the Oakland Athletics, and then just swept the Anaheim Angels, who are pathetic. So if you look at who they've played, they've played their own division, which is a little bit tougher. But the Oakland Athletics, who are bad, and the Angels, who are pathetic. The Yankees are a good team playing solid baseball right now. Another thing that'll worry you a little bit is the Yankees are 21 and 26 on the road. Meanwhile, Houston's 31 and 19 at home. The only teams in the American League that are better than Houston at home are Baltimore, Boston, and Kansas City. And Kansas City has played 2 less home games than them. And then if you want to throw them in baseball, just add the Washington Nationals. That's it. And the Nationals have played 1 more home game than them. This is a big, again, I said it going into the last series. I'm going to say it again. This is a big series for the Yankees. Not for the reason that it was of, okay, are we going to buy or are we going to sell? This is a big series for the Yankees as far as a wild card spot. By the end of this series, they could be 1 game in second place under the cut line. 1 game. They're 4 now. They could be 1. And in the week and a half to 2 weeks since the All-Star break, it could go from 6th to 2nd behind the cut line. This is a huge series for the team from the Bronx. And as far as the Chapman trade goes, I think the Yankees definitely got the better of it. They are going to be better because of it. You never know. Maybe getting a top prospect like Gleyber Torres. Getting a top prospect like him could boost the team up. Getting a guy who they know very well in Adam Warren could help the bullpen a little bit. Even though this past week the bullpen won their 3rd bullpen of the week award this season. The Yankees may get a boost from a trade like this, and they are playing very good baseball right now. This series against Houston, though, will go a long way, not only in deciding whether or not the Yankees should buy or sell, which I think that decision has already been made up at this point, but whether or not the Yankees are a legitimate threat for the wild card. And not only that, but they keep winning. Not only are they getting closer to a wild card spot, they're also getting closer to 3rd place in the division. Which, with the way it looks right now, it's going to be 2 teams. It's going to be 3 teams making playoffs out of the American League East. That's the way it's looked all season, and really the only team that has a chance to mess that up is Houston, who the Yankees play tonight, and I believe have 1 more series against them. Just looking through really quick, I believe the Yankees do have 1 more series against Houston to go, or have their home series against Houston to go. No, they don't. So they've already played Houston. So again, the Yankees find themselves in a big time spot tonight. We will see how they react back after this. Don't go away. All right, we're back. You're listening to Frank Fired Up here on the Mixed Up Sports Network, about a half hour away from Mixed Up Sports Live. Now, from the Yankees, we go to the Mets, who had how do you put this? I guess you could say an unprogressive series against the Miami Marlins. They did win the series, and with that, gain a game on the Marlins, are now a half a game behind the Marlins in the wild card. Now you face the St. Louis Cardinals, who are currently breathing down your neck, a half a game behind you. And much like the Marlins series, this could be a series that tells you everything you need to know about where the New York Mets are in the wild card race. I know it's the end of July. I know we're getting down to the trade deadline. But it's important baseball being played right now, both for the Yankees for their wild card spot and for the Mets for their wild card spot. The Mets, the Mets are definitely in a little bit more of a dire position as far as their wild card spot goes, being within a half a game of both of their closest rivals, both ahead and behind. The Yankees are a half a game behind their closest rival and tied with the closest rival behind them. But the Mets are on the cut line. The Yankees are 3 behind the cut line. So definitely more meaningful baseball being played in Queens right now than in the Bronx. Especially tonight against the St. Louis Cardinals, who come in riding a 2-game losing streak playing the LA Dodgers, who are in a wild card spot of their own. The Cardinals will send up Carlos Martinez tonight, who has been very, very solid for them this year. We'll get to the pitching matchups and the lineups a little bit later. But also, the Mets are a team that need to do something at the trade deadline. And like I said on Friday, what are you going to give up? You want another outfielder? Well, Cespedes is playing in left because he's got the thing with his arm. That means if you trade for a center fielder, you're taking time away from Lagares, who is your defensive stud. That you put Conforto in there at center field. The first time he's played center field in his life, the first play he gets, he makes a diving catch to make himself look very good. Still took him out of the game as a defensive liability, but gloss over that one. Then you have Curtis Granderson, whose contract is up at the end of this year, hitting home runs for you, so you're not going to get rid of him. You just signed Jose Reyes, so you're not going to trade for an Evan Longoria. You're not going to trade for a Freese at third base, otherwise you never would have went after Jose Reyes, who hasn't been bad. He's made a couple of mistakes, but that comes with not playing the position, ever. You're not getting rid of Asdrubal Cabrera. Maybe, especially knowing that Neil Walker is not going to be on the team next year, maybe you get rid of him, especially because he has been horrid these last few games. He has been dreadful these last few games, not just hitting, but in the field as well. James Loney has given you more than you ever could have expected. You're not going to trade any one of your starters, and now that turns you to number 2, the catcher's spot, Travis d'Arnaud. And the rumor that came out this week, which Sandy Alderson called dead on arrival this afternoon, was that previous reports stated this weekend that the Mets were in the mix for Brewers catcher Jonathan Lucroy for Travis d'Arnaud. d'Arnaud by no means has blossomed into the Mike Piazza ass-hitting catcher that he was regarded as when he got traded from Toronto. The guy hasn't stayed on the field long enough to do that. So to trade d'Arnaud, you know what? Maybe it sounds a little awkward, but when you look at it, it doesn't sound too bad. The guy never catches. The guy never plays, or hardly ever plays. And when he does, he's been hitting well recently, but he's gone with the rest of this team. He hasn't played half the games. He's not in the lineup tonight. So why? The guy's only playing 4 games a week. 3 or 4 games a week. Go in there, get yourself a guy like Jonathan Lucroy, who's hitting .301 with 13 home runs and 50 RBIs. Which, if you look at that, .301 will put him as the best hitter on the team ahead of Yoenis Cespedes by 2 points. Go by the lineup tonight. 13 home runs has him tied with Asdrubal Cabrera for third on the team right now. Fourth if you count Neil Walker, who's not in the lineup tonight. And the 50 RBIs puts him second on the team behind Yoenis Cespedes, who has 56. So to get a guy like Jonathan Lucroy, you know what? That ain't a bad idea either. The only issue with Lucroy is he's 30 years old, which that really isn't an issue. He brings veteran experience to the team, and he's not over the hill by any stretch of the imagination with the way he's playing this year. Made his second All-Star team this year. The big problem with Lucroy is the Cleveland Indians and the Texas Rangers are in on him, and the Rangers and Cleveland Indians have more to give up. Rumor also has that the Mets are interested in relievers Jeremy Jeffress, who's 28, 42 relief appearances at a 2.23 ERA. That'll be a solid addition. And also looking at 27-year-old lefty Will Smith, who has a 3.86 ERA in 23 outings. A little high, but you can deal with that. Rumor also has it that the Brewers have rejected a Lucroy for d'Arnaud straight-up trade. That was from Christy Acker to the New York Daily